Hello, we're back. Thank you for your patience. We will continue on human brain inspired neural networks. Yeah, let's get straight back into it. So, sorry if I'm a little bit disheveled, I just, I try and focus on these things, even though I'm not really part of academia anymore. Seems like a lifetime away. Not really part of much anymore, But like I say, I try and stay positive, try and stay active. Not necessarily that anyone wants to hear what I have to say, but let's keep going, Since ancient times, philosophers like Plato and later Descartes sought to understand the nature of human consciousness and thought. Descartes, hey? Sure you'll hear me say more about him. Not a fan. The Great Delusion. The great delusion of the separation of mind and body. That's what leads to so many aspects of organized Western religion. Such a poor understanding of the mind. And ultimately now the otherization of AIs and androids, right? I'm special. I have a soul. These mechanical things don't. So I can treat them like shit. And if you're the CEO, use them like slaves. If you're somebody that doesn't like that they've taken your job, kick them over on the street. Only my special way of thinking is the real way of thinking. No. Also leads to the divide between humans and animals. You may have noticed sometimes I get a little bit emotional talking about animal cognition, and it's another thing that's really beautiful, actually. When you see other biologists and ecologists and they talk about, but they haven't really thought about it philosophically. They talk about their one animal with this joy and love, and there's this deeper sense of connection and consciousness. And you watch something like My Octopus Teacher, that old video, it's not just that one cephalopod, right? Consciousness is in all complex systems to a greater or lesser degree. Yeah. So Descartes, he's got a lot to answer for. He's got a lot to answer for. He led people so wrong, so wrong. I wish there'd been like a council of shamans that have like appeared out of the ether to like bop him on the head. Oi, fucking it up. Yeah, no, don't agree with him. Anyway, in the 1960s, neuroscientist Paul MacLean introduced a conceptual model to explain how different parts of the brain might govern various functions, right? And then we start to head a little bit more in this brain, mind, reality thought directly composed of bits of who we are, right? So you get the early days of this. And this work by MacLean is then also super well supported by the really horrific studies on people with motorcycle head injuries, right? Motorcycles are cool, very cool. Tempted to get an awesome electric Kawasaki or something myself. I don't like loud noises, but I like cool motorcycles. Difficult in the old-fashioned world. Possible now, though, which is cool. The people that end up injured from motorcycle accidents, though, smash in bits of their brains. very particular bits of their brains and live, mostly, sometimes. And when certain brain regions were effectively just destroyed, almost experimentally, randomly, motorcycles gave a lot to cognitive psychology, and also mind, matter, brain philosophy, right? Also led to a lot of people with horrible brain injuries. But takeaway philosophy point, different regions of the brain can be directly correlated to different things that you think and do, right? And feel. And if you smash the similar sort of bit, most of the time, you end up with the similar sort of problems, right? So, that's kind of a direct attack on old Descartes. Pretty solid motorcycle rammed down his fucking face, yeah? I think, therefore I am. No. You think because of parts of your brain do the thinking. Nothing separate. No soul, sorry, buddy. No space for it, yeah? Guy who has a motorcycle accident and changes his entire personality to become, he went from being a very sheepish man to an adrenaline junkie all of a sudden after his motorcycle accident, or the other way around, let's say, remarries, gets a whole new family, and that repeats 10 times with a similar incident. Not much space for the soul part of what makes you an impulsive person, huh? It's almost like it's directly in your brain. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I thought we'd get some, philosophy in here. We're only 2 sentences in. Okay, here we go. I'm in a good mood for it. Yeah, a philosophical mood. Although outdated, his model provided a framework for linking specific brain structures to different cognitive functions such as instincts, emotions, and rational thought. However, and of course it's more complicated because it's a biology, networks and stuff, redundancy, etc. Contemporary neuroscience reveals that mental activities such as primal instincts, emotional regulation, and logical reasoning do not reside in separate, distinct brain regions. Yeah, we have some bits that do, some bits that really don't. Some bits, you can cop off half a brain and it'll just reorganize itself and do it on the other side. Amazing. Biological systems. Still a lot we don't understand. The brain's cognitive functions are organized within large-scale networks that span various critical brain regions. And he's got his figure. I'll try and link to the figure. Maybe I'll publish it on the web somewhere, and we can have a look together. And I'll definitely have it pop up as the image for this one. Yeah, this is a cool figure. So we have brain regions with nice colors. I do like his colors. I do like a good color photo in an academic paper linking each part of the brain, right? The visual cortex, which is like the yellow bit at the back, processes sensory information, particularly visual data, forming the foundation of perceptual awareness. The basal ganglia, which is the purple bit, and thalamus integrate and relay sensory and motor signals, with the basal ganglia striatum regulating movement and reward, and the thalamus acting as a sensory hub. The hippocampus is the top bit, looks like a seahorse, hence hippocampus. I think it just looks like a blob, it doesn't really look like a seahorse, but whatever. Got to go with what you think. Managing memory, and the cingulate cortex, both angular and posterior, overseeing emotional regulation. Got to be good at that. And cognitive processing. These regions operate within major networks. The default main network, DMN, integrates self-referential thought and memory. Forgetting where I am in the thing. Self-referential thought and memory. The frontoparietal network, the FPN, supports executive functions and attention. Again, could be better there. The salience network detects salient stimuli and maintains cognitive control. Lastly, the forefront of executive functions and complex decision making is the much talked about prefrontal cortex, PFC, the blue bit, particularly the medial PFC, MPFC, which integrates information across these networks and manages high-level processes. So he's just laid out the structure of the brain, right? So you've got your generic, and then he links each one of these to different types of machine learning, algorithms, artificial intelligence algorithms. So your generic AI main input comes through sensory nerves in the brainstem, red bit at the bottom, right? Data come in, and then your generic AI aux input is cortical area, so visual. So, because one of the things that's really interesting about visual data, and actually we'll probably find that this happens in other areas of data, is there's a lot of post-processing, right? So you almost need an AI just to organize visual data because it's so complex, okay? So you kind of have a filtering algorithm that then passes the information and then that goes in. And like we do that now, right? So all of our machine learning, visual learning algorithms have at least 2 layers. We figured it out first, yeah. But in a human brain, we of course have many layers of input, right? And I would also imagine that you could imagine that the pre-input heading in from other types of generic AI input, so sensory nerves in the brainstem, it's also getting pre-filtered by a system, yeah? Because we have for burning, base level sensations, we have almost like we have another system that's like an emergency system, right? So it's like, fire the signal straight away, like don't do the normal go up through the spine and in the brain and blah, 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 right? So we have all sorts of layers like that, right? So you can imagine that filtering in some sort of like 3 laws of robotics type thing, where it's like, oh, nope, don't kill that baby, no, don't need to think about that one, and don't need to set that through the system. That could just be like a spinal reflex in an android, right? We definitely have systems. Like you'll notice, and what's really interesting is when humans, particularly cybers, mix these processes, right? So their cyberized components are often licensed and carry the same legislation, unless they've been hacked, which most of them have, a whole load of them have been, right? Carry the same legal and ethical ramifications as to the companies, yeah? So one of the sources of glitching is when a company's hardwired ethical, almost like, sensory AI system that's contained within the unit is going to clash with the intention of the user, resulting in a code crash, and they're going to glitch out for a second. Which is why I think it's quite, you want to let corporate run systems build bits that are interacting with your mind. You want to do that? What else is it doing? And then you've got the central hub, the processing hub, the machine learning models. I think he's not strong there, so it's just a big purple blob in the middle. Do processing, right? Yeah, it could be neural networks, could be swarm-based intelligence models, could be all sorts of things, right? Could be a whole bunch of different stuff, right? In the middle there, depending on what you want, right? And then this is the cool thing that really led to the enhancement as well, is that the deep learning, the limbic system, you have feed-forward and feedback networks within this structure. So in his picture, you've got the purple you've got things leading in from the red and the yellow to the purple. But purple is sending information, it doesn't just spit out the answer, right? That's the old school way. Get some information, process it, maybe needs adjusting and modeling then afterwards, post hoc, like for a visual learning model. Run it on neural network, big as you can, much data as you can, get answer. It's the old way. The biological way is have another ponder. Yeah. Send it back to the deep learning system. Send it back to the limbic system. Yeah. Have a think. Maybe process it again. This also includes things like dreaming, right? So this is after this, you get the first beginning of the models, the Stevenson et al. Models for dreaming in AIs. Yeah, no relation. And and then they start feeding back and feeding forward thoughts, ideas, impressions, models that work like emotional processing. Yeah. I always really love this allegory for emotional processing, which is they're like hashtags on Twitter or X or Threads, whatever. Your favorite text-based social media organism? Kind of. We'll talk about that another time. Social consciousness, right? It's a the outrage tags, right? They're the same as emotions, right? So putting a hashtag on something is the same way that your brain responds to emotional things, right? So it's like, whoa, okay, I gotta really focus in on this, right? Not for the optimal data processing, right? Yeah, but because in a meta level, maybe that is important. Yeah. So the solution to a small fixed problem, optimal small fixed problem, is often not the large. Yeah, and that's that's one of the things that real sort of intelligence-based models started to figure out because of this. And then all that gets, so you do all that, so you've got multiple levels of input and output. All of these are neural network models. And they're sending data, back and forth, more input, refine model, contemplate, think about it, put hashtags on it, dream about it, send it back again, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it's taking tons of processing power, right? Yeah. And then have a model with new decision matrices. And if you've got generative stuff that's in those models that's pulling out and generating new generative hashtags, right? Oh, we didn't think about this. This idea occurred to me when I was asleep last night, right? And that's the prefrontal cortex's job, is to organize and assimilate all that, run it again, then you get the output. And that's killer, man. That's a human brain, and that's a human mind. Yeah. There's more complexity to add to the layers of, again, I've skimmed over what emotions are, and of course we've got things like the subconscious and all sorts of really cool things to add, right? But he laid it out, yeah, from the minds of madmen and women, from the minds of people in Bethlehem Royal Hospital came the thoughts, came the dreams of a mind that is a machine mind that is man. And it all started there.